penniless and lugging a broken suitcase. I found myself stranded on the streets, unable to even afford a night at a hotel. On the 7th day, at the subway station, I spotted a handwritten ad. Single father seeks stepmother for his son. No educational background required. Just genuine care for the child. After much hesitation, I finally dialed the number. The employer asked me, "Why do you want this job?" I answered honestly, "Because I'm at my wit's end. But I promise, I will genuinely care for the child." He paused for 2 seconds, then said, "Deal." 3 months later, my ex-husband made a grand appearance at the villa's gate. "Heard you're working as a stepmother. Have you faced reality? Come back to me." Before I could respond, the boy behind me hugged my leg. "My mom isn't going anywhere. You're the one who needs to face reality." My ex-husband looked up at the house number and was completely dumbfounded. The string of numbers burned on my fingertips through the phone screen. I gripped the phone, the sweat on my palm almost causing it to slip. The call connected. A deep, cold male voice came through the receiver. "Hello." That single word made my heart clench. I mustered all my strength to keep my voice from trembling. "Hello. I saw your advertisement for the position." The breathing on the other end was light, filled with a scrutinizing silence. "Address sent. 3 o'clock this afternoon." The call abruptly ended. Staring at the unfamiliar address on my phone, I felt like a drowning person grasping at a straw, unsure where it would lead. At 2:55 p.m., I stood before a massive wrought iron gate. This was Cloud Peak Manor, the city's most exclusive and luxurious residential area. The faded t-shirt I wore and the worn-out canvas shoes on my feet were utterly out of place. A security guard emerged from the booth, his gaze sweeping over me like a searchlight. I gave him the last 4 digits of my phone number and the agreed-upon time. After checking, the suspicion on his face receded, replaced by a professional indifference. The iron gate silently slid open to both sides, revealing a long driveway that seemed to stretch on forever. I dragged my dilapidated suitcase forward, each step feeling like walking on clouds, ethereal and unreal. The villa door opened. A man stood in the doorway, backlit, his figure tall and slender. He was Gu Yuanzhou. I learned his name later. At that moment, he was simply a stranger with an aura so powerful it was suffocating. His gaze fell upon me, devoid of emotion, as if looking at an inanimate object. "Come in." I followed him into the foyer, the soft wool carpet beneath my feet making me feel somewhat lost. The living room was astonishingly large, spacious, and desolate, like an exquisite museum. He sat on the sofa and gestured to the seat opposite him. I sat down cautiously, daring only to perch on the edge, my back ramrod straight. "Why do you want this job?" He repeated the question from the phone call, his eyes sharp, as if he could see through all my pretenses. How else could I answer? My embarrassment, my poverty, my wretchedness were all written on my face. I took a deep breath, abandoning all struggle, because I have nowhere else to go. My voice was soft, but clear. I was kicked out by my ex-husband, penniless, with nowhere to live. But I promise, I will genuinely be good to the child. Having said that, I lowered my head, awaiting the verdict. Maybe he would think I had ulterior motives. Maybe he would kick me out immediately. Silence fell in the living room. Every second felt like an eternity. "Deal." I looked up abruptly, unable to believe my ears. His face remained expressionless. "Your job is to take care of my son, Gu Xiaoxing, 6 years old. The housekeeper will tell you the specific requirements later." Just then, faint footsteps came from the stairs. A small figure appeared behind the railing on the 2nd floor. It was a very beautiful little boy, with fair skin and large eyes. But those eyes were hollow, devoid of any expression. He merely glanced at me indifferently, as if looking at a potted plant in the living room. That was Gu Xiaoxing. My heart clenched inexplicably. A middle-aged man in an impeccably tailored vest walked over. He must be the housekeeper. He gave me a slight nod, his attitude polite but distant. Miss Lin. This way. He led me to a room in the corner of the villa's first floor. The nanny's room. The room was clean and fully equipped. Even better than the master bedroom in the house where Zhang Cheng and I used to live. But it was still the nanny's room. The housekeeper handed me a booklet. These are Mr. Gus and the young master's daily preferences and taboos, as well as the house rules. Please be sure to memorize them. His tone carried no personal emotion, but every word was a warning. Mr. Gu hates people who don't follow the rules the most. I took the thick booklet, feeling as if it weighed a ton. After the housekeeper left, I closed the door, leaned against the door panel, and slowly slid to the ground. An immense sense of loneliness and unreality engulfed me. I hugged my only suitcase and buried my face deep inside. The tears that had been suppressed for 7 days finally burst forth silently at that moment. I remembered the way Zhang Qing threw the divorce agreement in my face, his face filled with disgust and impatience. I remembered him with his arm around that young and beautiful girl, saying to me, "Lin Wan, look at the state of you now, like a dried-up old woman. I'm embarrassed to be seen with you." I remembered begging him to show me some decency, for the sake of our 5-year marriage. But he just sneered. "Decency? You're useless yourself, and you still want decency." In this cold and luxurious cage, for the first time, I felt an utter desolation and resentment for the past 5 years of my dedication. The next morning, I prepared breakfast strictly according to the housekeeper's recipe. 1 portion for Gu Yuanzhou, 1 for Gu Xiaoxing. Gu Yuanzhou didn't come downstairs. The housekeeper took his breakfast up. Gu Xiaoxing sat at the enormous dining table, his small figure looking particularly lonely. I gently placed the children's plate in front of him. "Xiaoxing, time for breakfast." He didn't even glance at it, pushing the plate aside with his hand, making a grating sound. Some of the milk from the plate spilled out. I was stunned. The housekeeper walked over expressionlessly, wiped the table clean with a towel, and then took the plate away. Throughout the entire process, he didn't say a word to me. But that silent reproach was more hurtful than any words could have been. The following days were the same. No matter what I made sandwiches, oatmeal, small wontonch wouldn't touch any of it. He would just mechanically drink a few sips of milk and eat half a slice of white bread, as if it wasn't food, but a task. I noticed that he was very thin, and his face was always pale. The housekeeper said that he had always been like this, with a lack of interest in all food. I felt a great sense of failure. This wasn't just a job. It was practically my only lifeline. I couldn't just give up like this. In the afternoon, while I was cleaning Xiaoxing's room, I found a very old picture book in the bottom drawer of his bedside table. The cover of the picture book featured an adorable little rabbit. Suddenly, I had an idea. My greatest hobby used to be studying culinary arts, making all sorts of fancy dishes for Zhang Qing. He always ate them with high praise. Looking back, those praises were truly full of irony, but that skill was the only thing I could offer. The next morning, I woke up an hour earlier than usual. There were all kinds of molds in the kitchen, probably left behind by the previous nanny, but they looked very new, obviously not used much. I juiced carrots and green vegetables, and mixed the juice into the dough. When Xiaoxing came downstairs, what I placed in front of him was no longer ordinary toast and fried eggs. Instead, it was a small rabbit face made of toast, with blueberries adorning the eyes, strawberry slices forming rosy cheeks, and several carrot-carved small flowers beside it. For the first time, his eyes focused when I placed the food in front of him. He stared at the rabbit plate, his little brow furrowed slightly, as if thinking about something. I didn't say anything, just stood quietly to the side, my heart in my throat. He hesitated for a very long time. Then, a tiny finger reached out and poked that strawberry-like cheek. Finally, he picked up the fork, carefully speared a small piece, and put it in his mouth. He chewed very slowly, like a cautious little animal. After finishing that bite, he looked up at me. In that look, the wariness was still heavy, but it seemed to have lost some of its iciness. That morning, he ate half a bunny toast. This was, according to the housekeeper, an unprecedented amount. While preparing lunch, I saw a row of imported organic milk in the refrigerator. I remembered that after drinking milk in the morning, Xiaoxing always seemed to rub his tummy uncomfortably. A thought flashed through my mind. I took the opportunity to look up a lot of information online. In the evening, Gu Yuanzhou returned. I summoned the greatest courage of my life and stopped him. Mr. Gu. He stopped and looked at me with a cold gaze. I suspect Xiaoxing has a slight lactose intolerance. Long-term consumption of milk may cause him gastrointestinal discomfort and loss of appetite. His brow furrowed almost imperceptibly. The previous family doctor didn't mention it. This is just my guess, but I think it's worth trying to adjust it. I insisted. He stared at me for a few seconds, and that look almost made me want to back down. Suit yourself. He dropped those two words and went straight upstairs. From that day on, I replaced Xiaoxing's milk with lactose-free yogurt and soy milk. I also used various ingredients to make him cute. Creatively shaped children's meals, little dinosaur rice balls, little bear pasta, caterpillar bread. His appetite grew day by day, and his cheeks gradually filled out. Most importantly, he no longer rubbed his tummy. One evening a week later, I finished telling Xiaoxing a story and was about to leave the room. He suddenly grabbed the corner of my clothes from behind. I turned around. Under the dim bedside lamp, he lowered his head, his voice as soft as a mosquito. Thank you. My heart felt like it was gently held by a warm hand. The fatigue, grievances, and anxiety of these days all vanished at that moment. I squatted down and dared to look him directly in the eyes for the first time. You're welcome, Xiaoxing. I didn't know that in front of the surveillance screen in the study, Gu Yuanzhou looked at the scene, and a hint of softening appeared in his cold, hard eyes for the first time. I only knew that I seemed to have found a direction to work towards in this cold house. Xiaoxing started to cling to me. He would follow me like a little tail. Wherever I went, he would follow. He still didn't talk much, but he would bring me his favorite picture book, point at the words with his little finger, and ask me to read them to him. At night, he insisted that I finish reading him a story before he would go to sleep. I discovered that he was afraid of the dark. Every time I turned off the light and prepared to leave, he would stir uneasily in the darkness. Later, I would leave his small nightlight on, sit on the carpet by his bed, and wait until he was completely asleep and his breathing became steady and deep before quietly leaving. Gu Yuanzhou was away on a business trip for 3 days. When he returned, Xiaoxing was in the living room putting together a very complicated Lego set, which I had recently bought for him. As he assembled it, he explained to me which part of the spaceship it was, his little face filled with concentration and excitement. Gu Yuanzhou stood in the entryway, watching this scene, and didn't move for a long time. When Xiaoxing saw him, for the first time, he didn't shy away, but instead held up the Lego in his hand and shouted to him, "Daddy, look." That night, Gu Yuanzhou took the initiative to talk to me for the first time. He was no longer the aloof employer, but like an ordinary father. He asked many details about Xiaoxing, what he liked to eat, what he liked to play with, when he would laugh. I answered one by one, and he listened very carefully. At the end of the conversation, he asked the butler to give me an envelope. The envelope was thick, containing a full 30,000 yuan in bonus money. "You're doing a good job," he said. This was the first time in my life that I had earned so much money through my own ability. The next day, I asked the butler for half a day off. With this money, I went to the mall and bought myself a decent dress and a pair of comfortable flats. When I stood in front of the dressing room mirror, looking at myself who was no longer sallow and whose eyes had regained their sparkle, I suddenly felt like crying. It turned out that I could be pretty too. On the weekend, I obtained Gu Yuan's permission and took Xiaoxing to the amusement park. I bought him a Mickey Mouse balloon, which he held tightly in his hand the whole time. We rode the carousel together and played bumper cars together. He laughed happily, his laughter as crisp as silver bells. At that moment, I almost forgot my identity. We were like the most ordinary mother and son. Happy times are always too short. After getting off the bumper cars, I was holding Xiaoxing's hand to buy ice cream when a sharp voice came from behind. "Oh, isn't this Lin Wan?" My body stiffened. I would recognize this voice even if I were reduced to ashes. It was Zhang Cheng's mother, my former mother-in-law. Standing next to her were several women dressed in glittering jewelry, who seemed to be her mahjong partners. She sized me up and down, her eyes filled with disdain and schadenfreude. "What's wrong? Nowhere to go after the divorce. So you've come to work as a nanny for someone." She deliberately raised her voice, attracting the attention of the people around us. "That's right. A woman like you with no education or skills. What else can you do besides serving people?" Those harsh words were like needles, piercing into my ears. I felt my face burning, overwhelmed by embarrassment and humiliation. Instinctively, I wanted to shield Xiaoxing behind me, not wanting him to see me in such a disheveled state. But I didn't even have time to move. Xiaoxing broke free from my hand, took a step forward, and stood in front of me with his small body. He looked up, glaring at the old woman with a fierce look I had never seen before. "You're not allowed to bully Aunt Lin." His voice wasn't loud, but it was exceptionally firm, carrying an inviolable anger. My ex-mother-in-law and her mahjong partners were stunned. They probably didn't expect such a quiet and pretty child to suddenly erupt with such force. My ex-mother-in-law was taken aback by his shout, taking a step back, muttering a few words about having a mother but no upbringing, and then sulkily left with her friends. The surrounding gazes dispersed. I squatted down, looking at the small him standing in front of me. He was still angry, his small chest heaving with rage. I reached out and hugged him tightly. "Xiaoxing, thank you." He buried his head in my shoulder and mumbled, "She's a bad person." I couldn't hold back my tears any longer, and large drops fell. These weren't tears of grievance, but tears of gratitude. For a long time, I had been the giver, the protector. This was the first time someone had stood up so bravely to protect me. At this moment, some hard shell deep within me shattered completely. An unprecedented strength grew from the bottom of my heart. As expected, my ex-mother-in-law went home and exaggerated the story. Zhang Cheng quickly sent a text message, his words filled with a condescending sense of superiority. "Heard you're working as a nanny at Cloud Top Villa. Couldn't make it. Huh. Well, what else can you do besides serving people? Beg me, and I'll give you some money to spend. Don't embarrass me out there." Looking at the words on the screen, my stomach churned with nausea. This was the person I had loved for 5 years, for whom I had cooked and cleaned, for whom I had given up my career and social life. In the end, in his eyes, I was nothing more than an object to be discarded and humiliated at will. I didn't reply. I simply and calmly pressed the red block button. The world was quiet. Not long after, I saw a post from Lu Qianqian on a mutual friend's Moments. She posted a close-up photo with Zhang Qing, the background seeming to be an upscale restaurant. The caption read, "Thank you, darling, for the bag. Indeed, only men who work hard on their careers are the most handsome, unlike some people, who can only become nannies after divorce." How pitiful. Below was a close-up of the latest Chanel bag. I stared at the photo for a few seconds. I felt no ripple in my heart, not even a trace of anger. It was like watching an extremely clumsy performance that had nothing to do with me. I turned off my phone, got up, and went to prepare Xioxing's favorite mango pudding. Gu Yuanzhou seemed to notice something. That evening after dinner, he stopped me. "You've looked tired lately." His voice was still cool, but there seemed to be something else in it. "Take a day off to rest." I was a little surprised, but I still thanked him. The next day, I didn't go out. I just stayed in my room, pulled back the curtains, and let the sunlight in. I thought seriously about my future. I can't stay here forever. This job has given me a haven to catch my breath, but it's not the end of my life. I need to completely say goodbye to the past, and then live for myself. That day, Gu Yuanzhou and Xiaoxing were at home. When I came out of my room to get water, I heard Xiaoxing asking, "Daddy, why doesn't Auntie Lin come out? Is Auntie Lin sick? When will Auntie Lin play with me?" Gu Yuanzhou's voice sounded a little helpless, but more than that, it was a rare tenderness. "Auntie Lin needs to rest. Let's not disturb her." Holding my water glass, I stood at the kitchen door, my heart filled with something that was both sour and soft. In the evening, I walked out of my room. As soon as I opened the door, I saw two figures, one big and one small, standing like door gods at my door. Seeing me come out, Xiaoxing immediately ran over and hugged my leg, looking up at me with her little face. "Auntie, you're finally out." Gu Yuanzhou stood behind him, his expression a little unnatural, and he cleared his throat. "Dinner is ready." The afterglow of the setting sun shone in from the window at the end of the corridor, gilding them with a warm golden edge. My heart warmed up too. This place seems more and more like a home in the truest sense of the word. Zhang Qing was clearly infuriated after I blacklisted him. He probably couldn't accept that I, the discarded wife he had kicked aside, dared to ignore him. This seriously hurt his pathetic ego. On Saturday afternoon, the doorbell rang. Through the video intercom, I saw two faces that made me sick. Zhang Qing and Lu Qianqian, who was holding his arm. Zhang Qing was driving a newly bought BMW, wearing a brand-name suit. His hair slicked back, looking every bit the successful man. Lu Qianqian was dressed in fragrant style, carrying the bag she had shown off in her moments, her chin held high. I didn't want to open the door, but the doorbell stubbornly kept ringing. I didn't want the noise to wake up Xiaoxing from his nap. I took a deep breath and opened the door. Surprise flickered in their eyes when they saw me. They probably didn't expect that I would be wearing Ade loungewear, my hair neatly styled, my face rosy, not at all the haggard nanny they had imagined. Zhang Qing quickly resumed his superior demeanor. He leaned against the doorframe, speaking in a condescending tone. "Lin Wan, I heard you're working as a stepmother here. Had enough fun. Come back with me. For the sake of our marriage, I can still rent you a small studio apartment in the suburbs, so you don't have to end up on the streets." Lu Qianqian echoed sweetly from the side. "That's right, Wan. Why make things difficult for yourself? See, Aching still cares about you." As she spoke, she deliberately flaunted the huge diamond ring on her hand, its light dazzling. I watched their duet performance, finding it absurd and ridiculous. Before I could say anything, a small figure burst out from behind me like a cannonball. It was Xiaoxing. He had been awakened by the doorbell. He rushed over and hugged my leg tightly with all his might. Like an angry little animal protecting its cub, he looked up at Zhang Qing and Lu Qianqian and shouted with all his strength, "My mommy isn't going anywhere. You're bad people. Leave now. Mommy." He called me Mommy. This was the first time he had called me that in front of others. My nose suddenly stung, and my eyes instantly welled up with tears. The sound of the entire world seemed to disappear, and I could only hear my own heart pounding like a drum. Zhang Qing and Lu Qianqian were completely stunned. Their mouths were open, like two fish out of water, their smug expressions instantly frozen into comical astonishment. "Mommy." Zhang Qing's voice changed. Filled with disbelief, he subconsciously raised his head, his gaze passing over my shoulder and toward the impressive gate of the villa. Then, his gaze settled on the understated but weighty brass nameplate beside the gate. Cloud Peak Manor, A01. And below the nameplate, the flamboyant signature Guyuanzhou. In this city, and even the entire country, who didn't know that name? Zhang Cheng's face turned pale in an instant. No, it was ashen. The color drained from his face at a visible rate. His lips began to tremble, and fine beads of cold sweat appeared on his forehead. His contrived successful person demeanor, like a punctured balloon, instantly deflated. He looked at me, his eyes no longer filled with contempt and condescension, but with terror, with horror, with complete, shattering disbelief. At that moment, I looked at his face, ashen as death. The resentment, unwillingness, and pain that had accumulated in my heart for so long seemed to find an outlet and gushed out completely. Then, it transformed into unprecedented pleasure and relief. The door of the villa was pushed open from the inside. Gu Yuan's tall figure appeared behind me, one hand gently placed on my shoulder. His movement was light, but it carried an undeniable sense of protection. He didn't even glance at Zhang Qing, just gave a faint look to the security guard standing at the door. "Take care of it." His voice was cold, like the ice of December. Two security guards immediately ran over, supporting Zhang Qing, who had already gone weak in the legs, one on each side. "Mr. Gu, misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding." Zhang Qing finally found his voice, but he was so frightened that he spoke incoherently. Lu Qianqian had also turned pale and was trembling, hiding to the side, not even daring to breathe loudly. "My wife doesn't like to be disturbed." After Gu Yuanzhou finished speaking, he ignored the farce outside, put his arm around my shoulder, and led me back into the house. Behind us came Zhang Cheng's terrified explanations and the security guard's cold scolding, which soon faded away. The door was closed, isolating everything outside. Gu Yuanzhou let go of me, squatted down, and picked up Xiaoxing, who was still in an agitated state. He gently patted Xiaoxing's back, comforting him in a rare gentle tone. Xiaoxing was very brave, protecting mommy. Xiaoxing buried his head in his father's neck, and his emotions gradually calmed down. Gu Yuanzhou held Xiaoxing and looked up at me. I then realized that I was already in tears without knowing when. He looked at my red-rimmed eyes and was silent for a moment. Then, he took out a clean handkerchief from his pocket and handed it to me. Not a tissue, but a cotton handkerchief that had been ironed flat and carried a faint scent of soap. That night, after Xiaoxing fell asleep, Gu Yuanzhou asked me to talk in the study. Only a desk lamp was turned on in the study. The light was dim, and the atmosphere was a bit heavy. "What happened today will not happen again." He got straight to the point. I nodded, not knowing what to say. But there is only one way to completely solve the problem. He looked at me, his eyes deep, like a bottomless deep sea. "Let's get married." I froze, suspecting I had misheard. He seemed to have anticipated my reaction and continued to explain calmly. "A contract marriage. Xiaoxing needs a complete family." He likes you very much and even thinks of you as his mom. And you need a legal identity, a solid backing, to completely get rid of your ex-husband's harassment. He pushed a document in front of me. This is a prenuptial agreement. During the marriage, I will provide you and your family with a comfortable life. The contract is for 3 years. After 3 years, if you want to leave, I will give you 1% of Gus Group shares as compensation. Of course, this is just a transaction, not involving any feelings. Every word he spoke was clear and rational, as if he were discussing a multi-billion-dollar deal. My heart, however, was churning with turbulent waves. Marriage. I had just escaped from a failed marital prison, wounded all over. I was afraid. I resisted. I didn't want to bind my life with a piece of paper again. But the image of Xiaoxing standing in front of me, shouting loudly, "My mom isn't going anywhere," flashed in my mind. I remembered him hugging my leg, seeking protection. I remembered the sense of security when Gu Yuanzhou shielded me behind him and coldly said, "My wife." Although Zhang Qing was scared away today, with his rogue nature, wouldn't he come back to harass me in the future? Would my family come knocking again, sucking my blood and flesh like vampires? This contract was like a golden shield, protecting me firmly. More importantly, it was for Xiaoxing. I couldn't bear to leave him. I looked into Gu Yuanzhe's unfathomable eyes and struggled for a long time. Finally, for Xiaoxing, and for the sake of saying goodbye to the past completely, I nodded gently. Okay. My voice was as light as a sigh, but as heavy as a promise. The speed at which Gu Yuanzhou and I got our marriage certificate was like a dream. No ceremony, no guests. Only the standardized blessings from the Civil Affairs Bureau staff. Holding the red booklet in my hand felt somewhat unreal. I, Lin Wan, had become Mrs. Gu. The next day, Gu Yuanzhou had his personal assistant take me to the city's most exclusive members-only shopping mall. Mr. Gu instructed that Mrs. Gus' wardrobe needs to be completely reorganized. The assistant was a capable woman named Anna, who treated me with utmost respect. I was like a human mannequin, being dressed in one gorgeous outfit after another. The woman in the mirror was me, yet not me. The skin that had been worn down by the mundane realities of life regained its radiance under the nourishment of expensive skincare products. Cheap t-shirts were replaced by exquisitely tailored dresses, making me look upright and elegant. Looking at the radiant self in the mirror, I felt a sense of strangeness and bewilderment. A week later, Xiaoxing's international school held a parent-child sports day, requiring both parents to attend. This was the first time I would appear in public as Mrs. Gu. I wore a white suit that Gu Yuanzhou had chosen for me, applied light makeup, and appeared on the school lawn with him. Our appearance immediately attracted everyone's attention. Gu Yuanzhe's business status made him the focus wherever he went, and the sudden appearance of me by his side naturally became the object of everyone's scrutiny. I could feel the gazes coming from all directions, filled with curiosity, speculation, and jealousy. I was a little nervous, my palms slightly sweaty. Gu Yuanzhou noticed and unobtrusively took my hand. His palm was large and warm, giving me a sense of stability. Fate's arrangements are always full of irony. In the crowd, I saw an unexpected figure. Lu Qianqian. She was arm in arm with a pot-bellied middle-aged man, seemingly introducing something to him, probably to scout out this prestigious school in advance for the sake of the child in her belly. Her gaze quickly locked onto me as well, when she saw Gu Yuanzhou beside me, and our hands clasped together. The smile on her face froze, but she quickly recovered. Anne, clicking in her high heels, swayed her way over to me. Sister Wan Wan. What a coincidence. She deliberately emphasized the word sister. Are you here for the parent-child activities too? The parents here are all wealthy and influential. What's a nanny like you doing here? Her voice wasn't loud, but it was enough for several wealthy women who were chatting nearby to hear. Their gazes immediately turned playful. Before I could speak, Xiaoxing's homeroom teacher came over with a beaming smile. Mr. Gu, Mrs. Gu, you're here. Xiaoxing was talking about you this morning. The teacher's respect for Gu Yuanzhou was obvious, and extended to me as well, treating me with extreme courtesy. Mrs. Gu. Those 3 words were like a resounding slap in the face, hitting Lu Qianqian hard. Her expression instantly became colorful, more vibrant than a palette. I looked at her, and for the first time, a genuine, faint smile appeared on my face. I withdrew my hand from Gu Yuanzhis and gently took his arm. My posture intimate and natural. Is there a problem with Mrs. Gu attending her own son's parent-child activities? My voice was calm and clear. The gazes of the wealthy women around us immediately changed. Their looks towards Lu Qianqian were filled with disdain and contempt, as if they were looking at a clown who couldn't make it onto the stage. Oh, it's Mrs. Gu. My apologies. Exactly. Some people really have no discernment, daring to offend anyone. Whispers spread, and Lu Qianqian's face turned red and white, wishing she could find a crack in the ground to crawl into. She glared at me fiercely, and turned away in a fluster. I watched her retreating figure, feeling no sense of triumph or revenge, only a settling calm. I turned my head and met Gu Yuanzhe's gaze. In his eyes, which were always cool and detached, there was actually a hint of subtle, approving smile. The gears of life, in places I couldn't see, were crushing someone's fate with the force of thunder. Something happened to Zhang Cheng's company. In order to transform his business, he bet all his assets on a new energy project, and the largest investor in this project happened to be a subsidiary of Gu Yuanzhou Group. Less than a week after he came to the villa to make trouble, the project investment was urgently called to a halt. The official reason given was, the person in charge of the cooperative enterprise has serious problems with their personal conduct. In order to avoid investment risks, it has been decided to terminate the cooperation. A complete and utter dismantling. Zhang Cheng's capital chain snapped in response. Banks demanded loan repayments. Suppliers came knocking. Employees demanded wages. The company he had built with his own hands was, in just half a month, plunged into a precarious situation. He finally realized, belatedly, just what a monumental figure he had offended. He began to call and text me frantically. At first, it was threats. Lin Wan, you're ruthless. You think you can do whatever you want now that you've climbed up the social ladder. Just you wait. I blocked him immediately. He then called from countless unknown numbers. Finding that threats were useless, his attitude softened, turning into pleading. Wan, I was wrong. I was really wrong. Can you please beg Mr. Gu for mercy on my behalf? For the sake of our 5 years of marriage, you can't be so heartless. As long as you're willing to help me, I'll do anything. The messages popped up one after another, like a swarm of buzzing flies. Annoying. One evening, Gu Yuanzhou saw me frowning at my phone. What's wrong? I handed him the phone. He quickly scanned the humble and laughable pleas for mercy, his face devoid of any expression. He returned the phone to me. This is your matter. You decide. He casually placed this power of life and death into my hands. I looked at him and suddenly understood. He was doing all of this not to show off his power, nor to vent my anger. He wanted me to personally sever the shackles of the past. I took the phone and slowly typed a line on the screen. Your current situation is not caused by me, but is the result of all your past choices. You and I have long been settled. All the best. Send. Then, I opened my contacts and dragged that number, so deeply ingrained in my memory, along with all related unknown numbers, one by one, into the blacklist. After doing all this, I felt a sense of unprecedented relief, as if a mountain that had been pressing on my heart for many years had finally been completely removed. I looked up and met Guyuan's steep gaze. The moonlight outside the window shone in. Falling on his handsome profile, he suddenly reached out and took my hand, which was resting on the table. His palm was warm, and that warmth flowed along my fingertips, all the way into my heart. From now on, no one will be able to hurt you again, he said. In that moment, I believed it. The last straw that broke Zhang Cheng's back was Liu Qianqian. When his company went bankrupt and he desperately needed working capital, Liu Qianqian absconded with the last bit of liquid funds in his account, along with the child in her womb, disappearing without a trace. True partnerships of profit scatter when disaster strikes. My former best friend, Zhou Qi, learned about this by chance and called me specifically to tell me. She laughed gleefully on the other end of the phone. It's karma. That Zhang Cheng, he's bankrupt now. His house and car have been auctioned off, and they say he's in debt up to his eyeballs, like a rat crossing the street. I listened, my heart calm. Zhou Qi then mentioned another matter. By the way, Wan, I had someone investigate, and guess what? That so-called major investment mistake at Zhang Cheng's company was actually a scheme he concocted with Liu Qianqian. My heart constricted sharply. They deliberately cooked the books, fabricated losses, just to deceive you. To make you think the company was failing and he was under a lot of pressure, so you would willingly sign that divorce agreement relinquishing all your assets. The voice on the other end of the phone continued, but I could no longer hear it clearly. My mind was buzzing. So, from beginning to end, it was all a carefully planned scheme. He not only wanted to abandon me but also to squeeze out every last bit of value from me, leaving me penniless and with nothing. How vicious. How ruthless. After hanging up the phone, I sat on the sofa, my whole body cold. The last trace of pity I had felt for that man because of his miserable end disappeared at that moment. Only bone-chilling cold remained. In the evening, Gu Yuanzhou came home and frowned when he saw my listless appearance. What happened? I told him everything Zhou Qi had told me, exactly as she had said it. I spoke calmly, without crying or anger, as if recounting someone else's story. After I finished, I looked at him. Am I very stupid? He didn't answer. He simply walked over, sat next to me, and then put his arms around me, gently pulling me into his embrace. His embrace was warm, filled with a reassuring aura. I rested my head on his shoulder, and the tension in my nerves finally eased at that moment. You're not stupid. You're just too kind, he whispered in my ear. From now on, I will protect your kindness. We held each other in silence, without saying a word. After a long time, he released me, cupped my face in his hands, and looked intently into my eyes. Lin Wan, the so-called contract is just an excuse. My breath hitched. I fell for you the first time you bravely stood up to me for Shaoxing. I just didn't know how to approach someone as wounded as you. So, I used the clumsiest way I knew. His voice was deep and sincere, each word striking my heart. I looked at his handsome face so close to me, at the deep sea in his eyes that I once couldn't understand, now clearly reflecting my figure. In that sea, there was careful probing, clumsy tenderness, and something I had never seen before, called love. My tears, once again, fell uncontrollably, but this time, they were sweet. I was no longer the desperate Lin Wan, no longer the Livian nanny, nor the contract wife in name only. I am the mistress of this house, Gu Shaoxing's mother, Lin Wan, whom Gu Yuanzhou wants to protect for the rest of his life. From that day on, I began to learn to manage the vast family fund. Gu Yuanzhou hired the best financial advisors to teach me. To everyone's surprise, I showed an amazing talent. I began to truly steer my own life. The GU Group's 30th anniversary celebration was held in the city's top 7-star hotel. Celebrities gathered, and the stars shone brightly. Gu Yuanzhou took my hand and walked onto the red carpet. I wore a starry sky-colored dress custom-made for me by an Italian designer. The skirt adorned with tiny diamonds that glittered in the light. The housewife who once toiled in the kitchen could now stand confidently under the spotlight, accepting everyone's gaze. In the banquet hall, I accompanied Gu Yuanzhou, exchanging greetings with business tycoons. My demeanor was elegant and appropriate, my manners calm and generous, impressing everyone. No one regarded me as a mere pretty face who had risen to the top through beauty. What they saw was the true mistress of the GU Group. Mrs. Gu. Just as the atmosphere was heating up, a commotion suddenly erupted at the entrance of the banquet hall. A ragged, gaunt man, who had somehow slipped in, rushed towards us like a madman. It was Zhang Qing. He rushed to me, knelt down with a thud, and hugged my leg. Wan, I was wrong. Please forgive me. Please ask Mr. Gu to let me off. He was crying and sniveling, without any dignity. Immediately afterward, my former mother-in-law squeezed out of the crowd, sat on the ground with a thud, and began to wail, beating her thighs. Lin Wan, you heartless woman. How did our Hing ever wrong you that you want to harm him so? A day as husband and wife is 100 days of grace. Can't you give us a way out? The entire banquet hall fell silent, and everyone's eyes focused on us, full of inquiry and anticipation of a good show. This was a carefully planned moral kidnapping. They wanted to put me on the fire in such an occasion and force me to yield. I looked at the man I once loved, now at my feet, and his mother, who had once tormented me in every possible way, and felt only an overwhelming sense of absurdity. My hand was held tightly in Gu Yuanzhou's. He didn't even let me say a word. He calmly picked up a microphone from a waiter's tray and cleared his throat. Instantly, all eyes in the room were on him. I'd like to take this opportunity to formally introduce the person beside me. My wife, Lin Wan. His voice, amplified by the sound system, resonated throughout the hall, clear and powerful. As for these two, he cast a cold glance at the mother and son sprawled on the floor. How they used deceit to scheme my wife into leaving with nothing, ending up on the streets, and how they shamelessly humiliated her at my doorstep. I believe everyone here will soon find out. I, Gu Yuanzhou, am making my stance clear today. His gaze swept across the room, carrying a sense of dominance, as if he were a king surveying his domain. From this day forward, to disrespect Lin Wan is to be an enemy of the entire GU Corporation. As soon as he finished speaking, several security guards swiftly stepped forward, dragging Zhang Qing and his mother, still screaming and cursing, out like dead dogs. They became the biggest joke of the night. Gu Yuanzhou turned off the microphone and turned to look at me with tenderness. Under the gazes of the assembled dignitaries, filled with shock, envy, or awe, I straightened my back. At that moment, I was no longer anyone's shadow. I was me, the radiant Lin Wan, the rightfully acknowledged Mrs. Gu. I stood on tiptoe and, of my own volition, placed a light kiss on his cheek. It was not only a response to his protection but also a declaration of my sovereignty and my happiness. My man, my home, my new life, to be defended by my own hand.